downplay those successes.
No matter how big or how small, it deserves a happy dance or a cheeky cocktail or whatever might be your way to celebrate. Welcome to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers, where we're all about bite-sized tips and simple strategies for bright and busy new teachers.
If you're in your first few years of your career and want to make the roller coaster ride of teaching more fun, streamlined and stress-free, you're in the right place.
We're Ashley and Alicia, the dynamic duo from Rainbow Sky Creations, and we're excited to be your teacher mentors on the go. There are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together, we're unstoppable. Let's get into today's episode.
Here at Rainbow Sky Creations, we acknowledge the Darra people and the Whadjuk Noongar people, the traditional custodians of the lands on which we record this podcast today, where we live, work and learn. We pay our respects to their past, present and emerging elders of this nation and supports the cultural, spiritual and educational practices of First Nations people. Welcome to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers, where this episode is sponsored by Transform Your First Years. This is a membership especially for new teachers to help you fast track your expertise and confidence. So if you want to skip the scary new teacher learning curve, stop on by and find us at rainbowskycreations.com and click the membership button and learn all about how we can ease your teacher mind.
Welcome back to this episode. Today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. Alicia, is this new to you?
Absolutely not. No way.
Me neither. We were just saying before the recording of this podcast, we both feel the feeling of imposter syndrome on the reg, and it's normal to feel it. However, we can do things to help ourselves get around it. And sometimes it's just best to acknowledge it and then continue to move on, because it really is just something that's happening in our brain. It's not the truth. It's not the reality.
That's right. So firstly, what is imposter syndrome? So it's that feeling that you have only got to where you are because of luck, not because of your talents, your hard work, your qualifications or dedication. So many people feel imposter syndrome. Like, we're not just talking teachers here. I think a study had found that up to 70% of people in the workforce feel imposter syndrome. So what can we do to not let this monster yucky feeling take over and discredit all the hard work and effort that you've done in your life?
Yeah, 70%, that is huge.
I
was actually watching the Robbie Williams documentary last night, and he was saying he was going on to this big stage at this huge festival, and he thought, this is it. This is the moment that everyone is going to find out that I'm not very good. And that is imposter syndrome. Like, you think Robbie Williams, he's got nothing to feel like an imposter about. And this was well after he'd released all of his great hits, and he was well and truly a pop star and famous by this point, and he still felt that. So no one is immune to feeling imposter syndrome.
No, not at all. I felt imposter syndrome intensely when I moved back to Australia. So perhaps it was also an adjustment of living overseas for many years and coming back into Australian culture. And at this time, I wasn't moving back to my hometown. I was living in Ashley's neck of the woods over in Sydney, because, fun fact, that's where my husband's side of the family is from. And I remember I came midway through the year and I didn't have a job lined up, and I just put in job application after job application. I'm talking like 40 job applications and not hearing anything. You start to feel like, what am I doing here? What have I been doing for the last 8 years teaching? Like, huh? And it was just more a timing thing, but the narrative that you put in your mind just runs away sometimes. And I end up landing an amazing job at a ridiculously fancy private school. And instantly I felt like, they're going to know I shouldn't be here. I'm not qualified to be here. And it's funny what I told myself, and I had to really push through it and work through it. Thankfully, I had amazing colleagues, and it was my principal who actually partway through that year put me up to win an award. This award is just, in my head, is comical, but it was the World Teachers Recognition Award. And I'm there going, who am I to get this award? Like, this is so ridiculous. Like, I haven't done anything different. I've just gone into school, I've taught, talked to the kids, I've, loved what I do. But it was funny what people see that you don't see of what you're doing. So yeah, I ended up getting this award and getting validated by my colleagues, by my principal. And it was just that moment for me to check myself and be like, hang on a second, you're really qualified to be here. You're really good at what you do. And I think sometimes I just had to tell it really simply and be like, my brain can't argue with the fact that I'm a teacher. It doesn't need to know whether or not I'm a good teacher or a bad teacher, but I can argue the fact that I might not be a good teacher, and I can argue the fact that I am a bad teacher. But if I just say I'm a teacher, I can't really argue that.
No.
And sometimes that's all you need to do. If you're in a really bad headspace, just speak the fact, because your brain can't argue that. And then eventually, when you have those imposter syndrome thoughts coming in, you're better equipped to be like, hang on a second. That's not the case. That's not the narrative.
Yeah. From an outsider looking in, I think, I can't believe you had those feelings. You taught in Australia, in Perth for a couple of years, and then you went over and taught in Dubai for all of those years. And you came back, you had so much experience and so much to offer a school. And sometimes you're right. It is just about timing. Like in that particular case, it is also just side note, that was when Rainbow Sky was born, that time in Alicia's life, which has been the biggest blessing for both of us, really. But sometimes talking to a friend as well to find out, well, like, what is the facts and what is the truth? Because from my perspective, Alicia was crazy thinking about that in herself in that way.
Oh, thanks. Good to know. But isn't it interesting that sometimes in your most uncomfortable space in life grow the biggest fruits? You're not going to see it straight away. Like that was the time where I reached out to Ashley and was like, hey, I'm not doing much. I've got this crazy idea. Do you want to come on the ride with me? And Ashley's like, yeah, sure. I'm about to pop out a baby. Let's do this.
Why not?
And from that, like it'll be 8 years in April that Rainbow Sky has been around, and it's grown into something that we never envisioned it would. And yeah, do we have days where we're running Rainbow Sky and we feel a bit like imposters? We do, but we check in with each other and be like, hey, how's things going? Celebrate those successes. But yeah, we'll dive into that more and talk about how we can overcome and quash those imposter syndrome thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, you were even talking about this exact topic a couple of weeks back before we launched the podcast.
Yes.
You were saying to me, like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, we're really putting ourselves out there to this new audience and like, will they really value what we have to say? And I know that I felt like that in different parts of our business too, particularly getting on TikTok. Like that was really out of my comfort zone. And I felt like an imposter. Like, what if somebody sees this and thinks like, what I have to say is rubbish?
But we know that's not the case.
It's not the truth. No.
No, that's it.
Crayola Creativity Week is back again. The week-long worldwide program aims to nurture young children's minds and give them space to let their originality shine with plenty of resources and giveaways.
The program, which targets primary school-age children, has been designed to assist teachers in the classroom and includes numerous new educational resources, a teacher guide, inspirational videos, daily challenges, downloadable thinking sheets, plus share students' ideas, projects, and work in a secure online gallery and connect with other creative classrooms around the country during the live celebration assembly event.
Sign up for Crayola Creativity Week for free at crayola.com/creativity week. All right, so let's talk about how we can beat it. Let's talk about some strategies, something that's useful that you, our friends, can walk away from this episode today and put into action.
That's it. I love this quote that you have here where it's, today I will celebrate how far I've come. And where you are right now in your walk in life, you have come so far. And sometimes we just need to stop and go, I'm going to tell myself 3 things I'm really grateful for, or 3 things that I've done right now that makes me go, yes, I'm awesome. I've done it. Celebrate me.
Yeah, I think so often we achieve something and then we just move on and we don't take time to look back and congratulate ourselves or acknowledge what we've done. So there's definitely something in that for sure. I love this one, a little mantra. I am qualified. I am competent. I am able. This is so true. Like no one's putting anyone in a classroom that hasn't got a university degree here in Australia. I don't know what happens in other parts of the world, but here in Australia, you are going in with 4 years of university up your sleeve or 2 years of a master's degree up your sleeve. You've had your pracs. You are more than competent. You are more than able. And even the most experienced of teachers, they make mistakes. The only difference is that they know that it was just a mistake and they move on.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of, they bounce back from it. It happened. I apologize where I need to. I rectify the situation where I can and I move on from it because I am enough and what I'm doing is enough. So yes.
So our first strategy is something that you probably should have done when you were telling us this story, Alicia, but it's share your feelings. It's like a problem shared is a problem halved, right?
Yeah.
And if you had have come to me all of those years ago and said like, this is how I'm feeling, I would have been like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. You don't need to feel that way. But it's so true. It's so important to find other people that you can trust to talk about your feelings. Another teacher can be a really good barometer for us to see if situations, if we can't see them really clearly or if we're completely caught up with them, especially if something particularly happens with a student or a parent or someone on the leadership team. And we do all make mistakes and sometimes we just have to sort of brush it off and go with it. But sharing how you're feeling is really important.
Absolutely. Especially if it's a situation that's happened with parent or student, you can take it personally. And sometimes you need that other teacher, colleague, EA, administrator to just put it in perspective, even if it's just coming up with a game plan, like a plan of action on what you're going to do moving forward. And sometimes that is just enough to go, yeah, I do have the solution or the key to solve this, or just having someone listen to you and validate what you're feeling and being like, that's okay. You're allowed to feel like that. And it's so good I know because we can support each other in X, Y, Z, or however that may look further along.
Don't just sit yourself on the lonely island all by yourself. Teaching's a team sport, and we've said that so many times on this podcast already, and we'll continue to say it. So share your feelings if you're not feeling like you're doing the right thing and you're getting that imposter syndrome creeping in. Okay, number 2 is something that we both feel so passionate about, and that is finding a mentor.
Yes, having a mentor, like you might go, oh, well, I'm in like my 6th year of teaching. I don't need a mentor. But it's actually, I feel like I've always had some form of a mentor at any school I've worked at during, my 14 years in the classroom. And it allowed me to talk out scenarios or situations or allow me to see how they dealt with situations or what actions they put in place to make life easier as a teacher in the classroom. So when we're talking to our members in Tiffy, a lot of the time we might not be giving a solution. It's just more that we're listening to what they're sharing and being like, hey, yeah, that's okay. That's a really terrible situation you're in. And them being allowed to talk about it, they start to come up with a solution or they start to feel their nervous system calming, the cortisol levels dropping, and be able to be like, hang on, I'm able to cope with this situation. I have the right tools. I have the right skill set. I have the right people around me to be able to deal with this situation, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just about looking at it or thinking about it in a different way. But you can have a mentor at your school, like Alicia said. You could have a mentor outside of your school. It might be somebody that you worked with before or somebody that you connected with when you were studying, or you can even have a mentor that's online. Like Alicia and I, we provide a mentorship for teachers inside Transform Your First Years. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to help new teachers with all those struggles that you have. We wanted to be able to offer them an ear to listen to their problems without being the people that are going to employ them the following year.
Mm-hmm. And just to normalize the world of teaching.
Because it's not easy.
Absolutely not. And definitely when you're walking out there for the first time, you can feel like you're doing it really alone. Even if you have colleagues from university you're studying with, they might be going to different parts of the state or a new country. And it's just nice to know that you've got someone in your corner.
For sure. All right, this next one is really a mindset shift, and it is knowing that it's okay to fail. We're always saying that our students need to have a growth mindset, and I say mantras like mistakes help us learn in the classroom, but we need to give ourselves the same grace with that. So every mistake we make is a step towards becoming a better teacher. And as we said earlier, even the most experienced teachers will make mistakes. We are just human.
Yes. I love listening to the Imperfects podcast because
Great podcast.
Oh, it's so good. And I mean, they talk about things like vulnerability, and they just had the winner from Alone Australia recently, Gina.
Oh, yes. Wasn't she amazing?
Amazing. Like she's a motivational speaker and I know why, but she was talking a lot about being uncomfortable that we are in a society where we don't like being uncomfortable. Like we do anything we can not to be uncomfortable. And I just think of that as well as being a parent and how you put things in place. So it's like, I don't want my child to have a meltdown, so I'm going to do what I can. So I don't feel uncomfortable. They don't feel uncomfortable and the people around you don't feel uncomfortable. But I feel like being okay to fail is being okay at being uncomfortable. And it's being okay with being vulnerable. And it's being okay with saying, hey, I didn't make a great choice this time, but I'm learning from it and it'll be different the next time. So if you've got that mantra happening in your classroom, you're the one facilitating that mantra. So it's going to impact you and change you at the same time. And it's not going to happen in the first term or the second term. It's going to take time, but you're going to see that change. And you might even see that the teacher you were in January this year to January next year is much different.
Yeah, for sure. I had this therapist once and she used to always say to me, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, like what you were just saying. And I hated it at the time when she was telling me. I was like, oh, but there's so much to that, isn't there? I'm always saying that over in my mind at those times where I'm just not feeling as comfortable as what I want to, or I'm out of that comfort zone.
Yeah. And even just saying that is enough to check yourself. I was
Yes.
just doing it the other night and I was having a grumble to my husband about some technical thing. And I just said to him, it's just me learning to be uncomfortable with not having an immediate solution to something that I know I eventually will have a solution to, but I just need to give myself the time and grace to get to that point.
Yeah. All right. What's our next strategy?
Keep a folder of positivity. Keep a screenshot of positivities. I mean, it could be a digital folder. It can be a physical folder. But when you feel life bearing down on you and it's becoming too much and that little devil on your shoulder is nattering in your ear, just find something that brings you that level of positivity or joy or a smile or a laugh. Funny, we were talking about this because I'm currently gate crashing my mum's house because we're getting repairs done at our house. And I have stumbled across a box of teacher things, those laminated games I've put aside because I might need them in 10 years.
Yes, I hear you.
And I just found a folder of positive notes from kids, from teachers. When I say teachers, I taught a few of my teacher friends' kids. I've got cards from parents. And I was just reading through it and I went, oh, this would have immediately squashed those imposter thoughts I was having when I was Sydney, but I didn't have screenshots of them or I didn't have them saved digitally. But having something that you can go to that just resets your mind and just affirms that you are a human, you are enough, is going to help with those thoughts.
Yeah. So anytime you get that really lovely email, print it out or save it in a folder. Every time you get a card that's really heartfelt, that means a lot to you, put it in a folder so you can go back and have a look through those things.
Actually, funny you should say that. In our staff room, we had, one of those themed months and it was like appreciation or recognition. And any emails that came through to like administration, they would like print them off and like blow them up and put them up on the windows. So like throughout the term or that month, we just had all these email messages or, cards stuck up of just being recognized for the hard work and dedication that the staff were doing. It was really powerful and beautiful.
I love that because it's an opportunity for you to celebrate each other as well as the parents or the students saying thank you to that teacher too.
Yeah. And sometimes the teachers didn't even know that had been said about them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so lovely. All right. The next one is a little bit of a mantra for us. We say it a lot here at Rainbow Sky, and I'm sure we've said it on the podcast already, but perfection is a unicorn, meaning like unicorns don't exist and neither does being perfect. So remember that no teacher has it all together. No teacher does everything perfectly. No teacher is loving their teacher life 100% of the time. No teacher is patient every minute, every second of the day. So don't strive for something that's not possible.
Yeah. Perfection is unattainable. So just throw it out the window and go with the flow of life in a classroom and life with students and being a lifelong learner. Perfection isn't going to exist. We're learning every single day.
Do your best. That's all anyone can ask of you is to do your best.
That's it. And when those feelings of insecurity creep in, just remember, nobody's perfect. I think sometimes it took me many years to realize that I was a perfectionist. And I feel
Yes.
like once I kind of realized that, I could kind of address it easier. So if you feel like you're sitting on the fence, you're like, am I a perfectionist? Just think about, are you staying up late, burning the midnight oil, trying to get things done? Are you not asking for help and feeling like you should be able to get it done? There's these little telltale signs that go, oh my gosh, maybe I am.
Yes, become a recovering perfectionist. It's not a badge of honor to wear being a perfectionist. I feel like
No.
I always had to sort of know what I was doing all the time. I'm the first child in my family. I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. My whole life, I feel like I really needed to know what I was doing. I can't really say I don't know. And that's not
Mm,
true either. Like some of the people I look up to the most are the ones that say, look, I don't know the answer to that, or I don't know how to do that. Like you don't need to pretend if you don't know.
no. And it's probably those people you look up to because it's that inner confidence they have, that vulnerability, that authenticity that goes, oh, it is okay to not have the answer.
Yeah. No one has all the answers to everything.
I like this next one because I feel sometimes as also a recovering perfectionist, you forget to do this, and that's to
Yes.
celebrate your successes.
Yes.
No,
Don't downplay those successes.
no matter how big or how small, it deserves a happy dance or a cheeky cocktail or whatever might be your way to celebrate.
Yeah. I was going to say whatever tickles your pickle, but I feel like that's not appropriate for this podcast.
Do I now need to tick the explicit language box
I'm
when I
not sure.
upload this episode? But celebrate those wins. Like, oh my gosh, if there is a kid in your class that you've been trying to build a connection with and they reach out to you, that's worthy of a win, like to celebrate that night or the next day. If you survive your first week in the classroom as a new teacher, that first weekend as a teacher, you go celebrate, however that might be, whether that's going for a morning jog or getting an extra latte at your favorite cafe. Treat yourself.
Yeah. Celebrate all of those wins. We love to celebrate wins when our reports are handed in at the end of the school term, when something's been more successful than what we expected. It's great. There's lots of little wins that you can experience as a teacher at school because you're dealing with little kids. And
Mm,
when it comes with little kids, there's lots of growth, there's lots of learning, there's lots of fun times, and they're learning from you about how to behave socially all the time. So if you're helping them celebrate their successes, they're learning how to do that. And then in turn, you need to do that for yourself.
yeah, we used to do it at the end of the day, like what went well today? And kids would share something that went well today. So, they'd be walking out of the classroom either having thought of it and being like, what can I tell mum and dad or my carer or whomever's coming to pick me up about something that went well today? And of course,
Yeah.
we'd always talk about things that didn't go well because that's a learning opportunity as well.
Something I used to love to do at the very first week of school, when it was back to school that very first week, the end of every day, I'd say, this is the thing I loved so much today that I'm going home to tell my husband about or my roommate before I was married. And you'd see their little faces light up like, oh my gosh, she's going to go and talk about this amazing craft we did or this that we did. And it was just a really nice way to build that class community.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, on to our last strategy.
Use positive affirmations to combat ugly thoughts.
We've kind of spoken a little bit about that throughout this episode, but challenging those negative thoughts with positive affirmations.
So focusing on the positive will help your brain to recognize and acknowledge when good things happen. A little mantra, positive affirmation cards. I mean, we've seen them in the classroom. I mean, we've even got a resource where we have it set up as a rainbow of possibilities, and just having that displayed and being able to say that mantra, it's going to do wonders for all those messages going on in your brain and those neural pathways.
Yeah, sometimes those things that we set up for the kids can be so helpful to us. I was actually chatting with Aaron from Mr. J's Learning Space. He's got a podcast called the Teacher Takeaway Podcast. And we were talking about growth mindset on there. And we were saying that, a lot of the books that we read to our kids about growth mindset can be really great for us as adults as well. And that's the same as these affirmations that we might have out for our kids or up in our classroom. They can be really good for us too.
And that's it. At the end of the day, it's normal to have these feelings of imposter syndrome. The key is just to acknowledge them and not let them take over your life and not let them dictate huge decisions you're going to make.
For sure.
So to recap, if you're feeling that sense of imposter syndrome, start with sharing your feelings with someone you are happy to be vulnerable with and authentic with. Find a mentor. Know it's okay to fail, make mistakes, huge blunders. It happens. It's life. And keep a folder of positivity for those times when you're feeling a bit low and you just need a reminder on how awesome you are. And remember, perfection is a unicorn. So just don't even go there, and celebrate those successes and use any form of positive self-talk affirmations to reset your mindset.
They are all such good tips, and definitely little things that you can use, and you don't have to put them all into action at the one time. You can try different things and see what works for you.
Absolutely.
So that's a wrap for today, but I'm going to urge you to come back to our episode next week, because we're going to be talking about 5 free back to school activities. Plus, we have got a little surprise.
We do.
Been working on it behind the scenes, haven't you, Alicia?
It's always up to something.
I know. She was testing out something. She's written on our notes. This works.
That's pretty big when we know it works, because there are many times I suggest things without testing them, and you, our lovely listeners, are often our guinea pigs. So thank you in advance.
But also, we make mistakes and we just move on from it. So come back next week for 5 free back to school activities and this little surprise that Alicia has very kindly set up for us. And before you go, please tell someone about this podcast if you've been enjoying it. Your mum, your dog, your friend, your next door neighbour, whoever is willing to listen, please tell them. We would love to get this into the ears of as many teachers as possible.
Until next time, there are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together, we are unstoppable.